What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. In today's episode, we're going to talk about propagation. In this episode, I'm going to be sharing with you one of the most lucrative plants that you can propagate today and actually make a huge return on your investment to start either a small business or just get a ton of extra plants for your garden. And that plant is basil. A lot of people come to us and say, hey, I've got a passion to start a business, but also to link that business in with my other passion of growing plants. How can I do that? How can I get it started? And kind of how can I start seeing a really good return on my investment right away so I can get my business off the ground? And they always ask when it comes to funding, should I A, take a loan to start my business, or B, start with the capital that I have, capital being cash. Should I start with the cash that I have and invest it into stocks and bonds, which is basically taking your money and investing it in someone else's existing business in hopes for a return on my investment that then I can use to start my own business? Both are viable options, and both are options that a lot of people use to start their business. Don't get me wrong. But there's a third option that not a lot of people go towards, and it's by far the safest and the most lucrative option, and that's to start right where you're at with the money that you have. You see, if you take out a loan, you're going to be asking the bank for some money. And the risk is not necessarily that you're going to lose all of your money, because it's the bank that's really taking a kind of gambling on you. But in return, you're going to pay interest on the money that you take out. And that can be anywhere between 4 and 9%, depending on how risky of a business it is and how much money you have up front to start that business. But if you're going with stocks and bonds on the flip side, it's not as risky in the long run, because you don't pay interest on that money because it's already your money. And you're entrusting another business to spend your money wisely in growing that money in hopes that in a year or 2 years or so, you can cash out, sell your shares of that company for a return on your investment. However, the downside with that is that if we're talking about most people's current disposable income of, say, a couple $100s is not going to get you a huge return on your investment. It's far less risk to just take, say, $500 or even $100 and start your business that way. So the best way to start a business with what you have is propagation. Now, obviously, there are a lot of other businesses that can be started in the gardening sector, but the most profitable and the most lucrative can be done with propagation. Now, propagation is done through one of two ways. You can start via seeds or start via cuttings. Now, both are extremely profitable because, I think if you're looking at the average person that has a garden or like a patio garden, they don't necessarily start with seeds. It can be a little bit complicated. So what do? They start with a plant. They start with a seedling, because taking care of a seedling is, while you and I know the secret, it's not nearly as hard as people make it out to seem. One of the things is that when people start with seedlings, they can only go to a few places. They can go to a greenhouse or a garden center, like a big box store, and they're going to buy those seedlings at $2.50, $3 a pop per seedling. So if you start with seed, there's a huge upside there in that you're starting with a packet of seeds. Sure, a few might not germinate, but let's say out of a pack of 25 seeds that you get over at MIgardener.com for 99 cents, let's say you get 100% germination, whatever. Not making any promises. Let's just say you do, hypothetically. You take 25 seedlings, you sell them even at $1 a seedling, even $1 per seedling, you're going to get about you're going to get $25 at $1 a seedling, and you only spent $1 on that packet of seeds. Now, obviously, that's not taking into consideration the soil, your time, water, the pots, yada, yada. I know I'm going to hear it. I'm talking just strictly on a plant basis. You're turning $25, you're making $25 into out of $1, basically. So with that being said, there's also a second way of plant propagation, and that is through cuttings. Now, I love cuttings. I also love starting from seed, but I love cuttings because you can start with a plant that's already alive. As that plant grows, you can create genetic clones of that plant so that as this plant grows, you can essentially clip it off, doing no harm to the plant other than just chopping it back. It's then going to regrow. It usually grows bigger and faster the second time around, and you're getting a plant out of the gig as well. So where I'm getting at is that I love to propagate herbs, specifically basil. Basil is a crop that you can propagate and you can make within just a couple months. You can make 20 or 30 times your investment, which is great because if you look at, say, a tomato seedling that you start from a tomato seed, again, I think starting from seed is a great option, especially because it gives you a lot of diversity. But if you're looking at just specializing and making a ton of money, doing it really quickly, and having very little risk and effort involved, propagating herbs, specifically basil, is the way to go. And here's why. You're gonna start with a plant. I actually bought this herb plant about 2 months ago from our local big box store. It was in the fresh herbs section, and I simply planted it in this container here, and I have another one here. And what we've been doing is, as this plant grows, I've been clipping it back, and I've been propagating them. When I took this plant, from this plant alone, I clipped it 10 times. That means I took this one plant, and I made 10 seedlings. Each one of these seedlings is now a brand new plant. And basil is something that bushes very quickly. It can be grown closely together, and every time that you clip it, it forms 2, sometimes 4 additional side plants that then can grow, and you can propagate those. So this initial cutting here yielded 10 basil seedlings. As it grows, I'm going to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 additional plants that I'm seeing here as new plants that in about a couple more weeks, I can cut again. So I got 10, so I turned one plant into 10. From the clipping, I'm gonna get 20 additional plants, still haven't killed this mother plant. That means I'm gonna get 30 plants. Over the course of about 3 months, I'm going to take one plant and turn it into 30 plants. And here's the kicker. Basil is one of the best-selling and the most marketable herbs in the entire country, if not the entire world. And why there's a little asterisk there with if not the entire world is because there's some pretty hard data that suggests that basil is one of the most popular herbs sold at greenhouses in the United States because we have the United States, it's the United States Greenhouse Growers, so USGGA, something like that. It's the Greenhouse Growers Association of America, GGG, doesn't matter. Either way, they ran some studies and they asked 1,000 greenhouse growers what their most popular herb was, or first they asked them what their most popular sectors was. And vegetables was one of their more popular sectors that popped up. Flowers was number 1, obviously. Vegetables was number 2. Perennials was number 3. And then broken down into those categories of the vegetables, tomatoes was number 1, and basil was number 2. Tomatoes and basil. Now, you have here a perfect storm because basil shows up as one of the most best-selling and the most popular, and it's also the easiest to propagate. And the fact that it grows so much quicker than a tomato, this makes it the best plant for you to grow and propagate. Here's a huge point that I don't know why I didn't make earlier. When you're looking at tomatoes, you have Beefmaster, you have Beefsteak, you have Bonnie's Best, Big Boy, Brandywine, Big Beefy Boy, Brandywine Girl. I don't even know. There's millions out there to choose from. People don't know what variety is better than the next because a beginning gardener, they just want to buy a tomato that's red, it's good for putting on burgers and sandwiches, and won't die when they plant it. I know from experience because I worked at a greenhouse. There's a lot of people that have no clue what they're buying, and that's fine. I'm just saying that if you're marketing something at, say, a roadside stand or a greenhouse of your own, or even a farmer's market, which is a wonderful place to get your business started for very inexpensive, people are going to be able to recognize this no matter where you go, and it's got a huge upside because it's so popular, and people are willing to pay a lot for it. So as you can see here, this initial little stub is where I clipped off one of these little seedlings. So these cuttings here are where all of these little stubs are. And you'll notice that just below this stem, there is another set of leaves here. Each one of those is a brand new plant that is going to grow. It's almost like a tomato sucker. And as that plant grows, you can then take it as it grows its stem a little bit longer. Obviously, you would not want to do this now because it would not propagate very well. But as it grows, you can clip that off, and then you can root it just like one of these. Very, very simple to do, and it takes no time at all. All right, so I just have a cup of water here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I want to clip, just make sure that when I clip the stem, I have about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of stem so that I have a really good amount to stick into the water. There's one. There's two. Over here, I've got a second plant here. There's 3. And saved you some time when you clipped these. That's 4, 5, 6, and 7 from this other plant over here. So I have now 7 basil cuttings that are all going to grow into separate plants. And I still have, here's the magic, I still have the mother plants that as they grow, I can cut from these again. So now that I have these plants here in this cup of water, I want to make sure that I leave them in like a dark location, something that's not really gonna stress them out a ton. But also, I wanna make sure that I keep the water freshened up, because when you freshen the water up, it prevents any like mold, mildew, or bacteria that can rot out the stems. You're gonna have a far better time rooting these cuttings. And then once these cuttings are rooted, you can move them into rock wool if you want to grow them hydroponically, or you can move them into a little 3-inch container. This is the most marketable size at greenhouses and farmers markets because people think that bigger is always better. So if you put them in a 3-inch pot, they're gonna sell a whole lot better than 6-cell packs. And you're also gonna get more dollars per plant out of a 3-inch pot. Yes, it takes a little bit longer to get a mature plant that's worth selling, but that extra time is going to pay off huge in the long run. Or what you can do is you can move them right into your garden. If you're not going to sell them at all, simply move them into your garden. It's a great way to get free plants. And certainly, you don't necessarily have to start a business just to make some more plants for yourself. So there you go. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. I hope you learned something new. And while it's quite a lot different from our normal content, I think it's at least worth addressing the questions and concerns that come into my inbox. And this has been one that's been coming up for quite some time now that I just have not addressed because it's just, it's something that it takes a special time of year to want to talk about. And the off season, when not a whole lot is happening, I think is a great time to talk about this. So hopefully you found it at least interesting. And if not, like I said, hopefully you can at least get some free plants out of it. But let me know in the comments box below if you've ever wanted to start a gardening business and or if you do have a gardening business, and just some other ways that you have found to make a good side living. I know sometimes we don't like to share our secrets and we don't like to talk about what we do, but there's really no shame in it because there's an old saying that Mrs. MIgardener says all the time and I really love, and it's the sun comes out for everyone. Just because I'm sharing this secret, there's gonna be a lot of people that say, oh, yeah, but now everyone's gonna start selling basil. Yeah, but just because everyone starts selling basil doesn't mean it's gonna take any business away from you. There's plenty of business out there still left. And also, there's a lot of people that simply won't take me up on this advice. And so even if this video ends up getting 1 million or 2 million views, there's only a very small percentage that are actually going to listen. I hope you guys at least try this. And like I said, even if it's just to get some free plants for your garden, give it a shot. We have a lot of videos on propagating. I'll see if I can round some of them up and post them in the comments box or the description box below. But again, hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to throw a like up there. Subscribe if you're not yet already. We have a ton more content coming out. Really excited about all of it. And I do see some warm days in the future. And that means we're going to be outside in the garden because I have a few things that I still have to finish up before, before spring comes. We're a little bit late, but better late than never. All right, I'll catch you guys on tomorrow's episode. As always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow big or go home. We'll catch you all later. See ya. Bye.